Hello everyone, Raven here. I just wanted to create a short video regarding my painting process in Krita and how I would go about creating my digital portraits that I post on Instagram. So if you want to learn a thing or two about my process, then keep on watching. So first and foremost, I start off with a sketch. I just draw a simple circle to represent the cranium of the character and then drawing the jaw using very straight lines. And keeping in mind to use lots of angles in creating it because we want to build form and structure and we want our character to look very volumetric instead of flat. As you can see, I am adding a sort of cross at the center of the face. The vertical line is just supposed to represent the center line of the face so that, things are symmetrical. And then the line that is slightly horizontal will represent where the eyebrows will go later on. When I draw portraits of people in the 3/4 view, I always look for that angle where the brow ridge and the nose will meet, and I always draw that first, then the eyebrows and eyes, then proceed to draw the other features, depending on how I'm feeling. So I think in this process I did the nose, then the mouth, then the jaw, and then the ears and the hairline and the body. So yeah. And don't be afraid to use the transform tools that are in Krita. They are extremely helpful and I use them a lot in my process, as you can see. I use them to reshape noses, to fix any asymmetry and broken anatomy. I especially love using the liquify tool. And by the way, I'm actually using a reference photo for this portrait. It is extremely useful to use reference, especially when you're still a beginner at doing this. So don't pressure yourself into drawing everything from imagination. And don't be one of those kids who's like, I will use a reference for this one. Like, no, we can tell. And not only will references make sure that your drawings look decent, they'll also make sure that you're learning something whenever you're making a new artwork and that you're filling your visual library with accurate information. And I'll link down below the Instagram account of the person in the image that I used, so go check her out. And I also didn't record it, but I colored the line art bright orange color. So how you do it is basically you turn on the alpha inheritance, I think, that little shape at the top, and then you take the color that you want, which is a bright orange or a bright red, and then you click that arrow thing to sort of make it your background color. And then you click backspace and then it will color your line art the bright orange. So yeah, this is just to help with blending later on so that your image won't look gray when you start blending in the line art with the colors of the portrait. This is especially important when drawing people of color and people of darker complexions because you don't want to make them look ashy, girl. You don't. Again, just some more reshaping using the transform tools, liquify, and just flipping the canvas to make sure that everything is proportional. I always make sure that the sketch is pretty solid before I move on to the coloring because for me it is the most important part of the art piece. It'll be your sort of guide in how you will color the portrait later on. Trust me, you cannot save a bad sketch with fancy rendering later on. No, that's not how it works. Make sure that the foundation is right before you move on with the coloring process. So with the coloring process, I just start off with blocking in the silhouette of the character with a sort of base color that's gonna be their skin tone later on. And then I also put on a sort of grayish background because I don't like painting on white. My images always end up looking a little too bright when I paint with a white background on. So yeah. And then I use that silhouette of the character to make a clipping mask, or in this case with Krita, a clipping group for the coloring process. What I do is I just right click the layer of the base color and then I select group and then quick clipping group, and there will be a mask layer on top of the base. And this is just to make sure that you won't be painting over the silhouette that you already created with the base layer. And any other layer that is on top with alpha inheritance on will also have the same effect. You won't be able to paint over the silhouette. So yeah, this is just to keep things clean and to make things easier. So in that clipping group, I add different layers for the different parts of the person, like their hair, their clothing, and their skin. This is how I actually start the coloring process. First, I add the dark accents of the face. In the case of this image, it is the eyebrows, the lashes, the liner, the iris, since she has dark eyes, the nostrils, the shadows on her lips, and the cast shadow on her neck and under the clothes. On that same shading layer, I also add the less dark shadows that are in the image. So I add the side plane of their face and make it darker, the crease in her eye. I just use the reference as a guide to where to place the shadows, and make sure to use simple shapes and not to complicate things too much in this part of the process. Our goal in this part is just to establish shadow areas and separate them from the midtones and the highlights. Don't expect this to look that good yet. We're gonna get there. Calm down, Jerome. After getting to a point where I feel like we're getting a bit of volume now, I then proceed to adding the highlights. Again, keep things simple. Don't complicate the shapes too much. I literally just added a rectangle on her forehead right now. Then I added a bit of lighting information on her eye region. I just emulated her eye look that she has on in the photo. And then I added some shadows in the lashes, and I painted on the whites of the eye. And remember, when painting on the sort of whites, as they call it, don't literally make it white. This region called the sclera is more of a grayish, desaturated version of the skin tone, like a lighter version of that. At least that's how I approach it. And as you can see, my process is pretty simple. I establish the shadow areas, the light areas, and then add some nuances to them later on based on the reference. There's really nothing more to it. Then I repeat that with the other parts like the hair, the accessories, and the clothing. And as you may notice, everything that I'm doing right now is still under the sketch layer. After I feel like we've created a solid image under the sketch layer, that's when I merge the visible layers and then paint over the sketches. I actually struggled with the jewelry part. I try to make it sort of abstract and like sort of implied painting, like kind of like Bullock does on a lot of his paintings with metal and jewelry in it, but didn't work. But it's okay. I'm just gonna cover it up with sparkles later on. Is my voice annoying? I feel like it is. So this is when I actually made a big mistake in this image. I merged the visible layers but forgot to turn off the background, so I merged the character with the background. Big mistake. I had to erase everything by hand later on. Don't worry, you won't have to see it. I didn't record it. I feel like it would just be boring. Anyways, now I am at the rendering process where I am painting over the lines that we made in the sketch and making it more realistic. And also adding some details, especially in the eye region, because I want to draw more attention there. Therefore, I add more shabam to it, you know. This is the part that I talked about early on. I just added the sort of sparkles on the jewelry using a pencil sort of texture brush and using the color dodge mode to add some glowing effects. So I just added a cross shape thing, you know. That's pretty much it for the subject of this painting. I just used a smudge brush so that we can get some softer blending in some areas, but make sure to not overuse it because we created some hard edges and beautiful shapes early on to make the image more appealing, and you don't want to lose all of it with just blending everything to like a blob of color. It is, again, to keep things looking volumetric instead of flat. So it's okay to blend some areas but make sure to leave in some hard edges, because if you don't, then your image will just look blurry. I approached the background in a very random and chaotic way. I just randomly slap on different colors and pray for the best. No, I'm kidding. I paint on random shapes of colors and then I use various blending modes to make them look interesting, and also play around with the levels, the color balance, and the curves. I also added a sort of cast shadow behind the character, so just make her look like she is part of the image and she is actually standing in front of the background. I also play around with filters as a part of the final steps of rendering the piece to just give it a little bit of texture. Lastly, I export the image as PNG and send it to my phone actually, because different monitors show your artwork in a very different way. The colors look very different in different monitors. For example, Samsung phones will show color in a very dynamic way. It makes it very saturated, in contrast to iOS devices, which is sort of less saturated colors. I also noticed that my laptop has a purplish tint to it, and as a result, my images always look slightly greenish in tint, so I fixed that on my phone using Snapseed. Just very minor touches. It doesn't really add much to what is already shown in the speed paint. Just very minor touches to color. And yes, that is pretty much it for my digital painting process. I hope you found it helpful, interesting, entertaining. I don't know. Comment down below what you think about it. Comment down below any ideas for future videos that you want to see. Maybe I could do a detailed eye tutorial. I don't know. Comment, please. And also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Prism Raven. I have 7 followers. I wish I was kidding. Like this video, comment what you want, and also subscribe to my channel and click the bell notification so that you'll get notified whenever I post new uploads. Send it to your friends, maybe they'll find it helpful. Send it to your grandma, I don't know. Thanks for watching. Bye.